Paul Simpson and I were looking for group names. We'd keep a name about a day and get bored. We would Soul Giants for about 4 hours, but it soon sounded crap. By September, Mick and I were round at Simo's every day. We needed a drummer and we needed a name. Then Simo got his comics out. There was this story in a Super DC comic about a battle in Central Park involving Namor, the undersea god, and the superhero Daredevil. The whole story comes to a climax as the sun blots out, and suddenly, for no reason at all, the Teardrop Explodes. It made no sense. The story made no sense at all. We tried to figure it out and we couldn't, but it was a great name for a group. I loved it. It was like the 13th Floor Elevators, or the Chocolate Watch Band, and no one had a name like that. September 78 was all short, dour names. Ours was far fucking out. That night at Eric's, I asked Gary Dwyer to join our group. He was a big mate of Pete Wiley, and he talked about learning to play drums for ages. Gary modelled himself on Rocky. He was 6'5", dyed his hair black, and had an enormous black coat. In the deafening roar of Eric's bar, Gary said, "What are you called?" When he heard the name, he looked down at me and he said, "You've got a weird one there, Julian." He was right, and it looked like we might have a very cool one too. Gary brought a drum kit down that he'd inherited from his auntie, so now we had a real kit, and Gary could play this rhythm that Budgie had taught him. Simo, Mick and I had been worried about asking Gary. He knew absolutely shit about music, but we were desperate. It turned out to be the best thing we could have done. Gary worked us really hard. He got good in about 4 weeks and asked us when the first gigs were. Gigs? It's only October. Gary said we needed to play live or we will never get better. I couldn't believe what he was saying. He'd only started playing drums in September. No way would we be ready this year. I was scared shitless. Sure, it sounded good, but only in comparison to how crap we'd been in August. I shuddered at the thought of playing on stage. This was our last real chance. I was convinced we had to do it right. We wrote Sleeping Gas. It started with my bass riff, which I had ripped off from Ain't It Strange by Patti Smith. The song began as a bass and drums jam 1 month before, between myself and Dave Pickett, who had promptly named it Sleeping Gas. Mick played these 2 spindly chords, and Simo just pumped away on 2 notes. But when Rocky Dwyer heard the song, he tried to put a disco beat to it, and it became this low-grade dance song. Wonderful. We recorded a 45-minute version of Sleeping Gas, a whole side of a C90 cassette, with me singing anything. Then I took the tape home, worked out what the words were, and came back with a finished song.